Let's start with Apple, with Steve Jobs announcing the iPhone 3G. I bet you could see that one coming. Aside from the 3G support, there's now GPS, although disappointingly the camera is the same lowly 2 megapixel non-focusing, no flash unit, and with no video recording. And the case is now plastic and not metal, a shame. Despite there still not being any way to run background applications, so for example your third-party sat-nav suite will have to close while you fiddle with an alarm or check your calendar, the software tweaks are still impressive, with the new App Store managing the acquisition and upgrading of third-party applications, with Mobile Me keeping your, quote, Me account on the web, that used to be .mac by the way, fully synced with your messages and PIM data and photos, and there's full support for Microsoft Exchange. There are also tweaks to the built-in iPhone applications, contact searching in contacts, and multiple message management and extra attachment support in messaging. There's still no copy and paste though, and the Bluetooth support is still appalling. I'll be reviewing all the many pros and many cons of this in the autumn. In the meantime, the iPhone 3G will be available in most countries on July the 11th at various prices, plus a lengthy high-price contract. I'm not sure I could stand staying with the same hardware for 18 months or 2 years, but there you go. Following hard on the announcement of the Touch Diamond, HTC has announced the Touch Pro, essentially with all the tweaks found in the Diamond, but with a slide-out QWERTY keyboard and a micro SD card slot, and beefier internal memory. I have quite a few reservations about the usability and speed of this flashy animated interface in the real world though. We shall see. Look for a review of this in the autumn. My long-term favourite flagship, the Nokia E90, just received a major firmware update to a mighty V210.34.75, and this includes Flashlight 3 for YouTube videos and the like, plus many optimizations under the hood. Do watch out though for a works or doesn't work flash bug. I blame Adobe. See this article of mine for information on avoiding it. Also boasting major new firmware is the older Nokia E61i, although we're mainly talking bug fixes and speed tweaks. Still, fire up Nokia software update for version 3. If you've got an S60 device and have been eyeing up Apple's latest iMacs and lusting after their stunning leopard desktop look, fret not, because Pete Zero's just made a dedicated leopard theme for you all. Grab it here for free. Nokia Maps 2.0 in beta for an eternity has finally been released with lots of extra tweaks over the test version, including cell tower location, in addition to GPS of course, a cleaner menu structure and display of your current navigation licenses, plus all the major improvements for V2 itself, naturally. Finally, Samsung has announced the i900 Omnia, based on Windows Mobile 6.1 but with truly Nokia-esque specifications. There's a 3.2-inch auto-rotating W-quarter VGA display and a slightly gimmicky optical mouse instead of a D-pad, plus Wi-Fi, radio, 3.5G, a 5 megapixel camera with, and I quote, face and smile detection, whatever next, plus automatic geotagging of photos. Like the Apple iPhone, there's an 8GB and a 16GB version. And now for something completely different. Well, perhaps not if you were watching show 59, which featured the Asus M930 clamshell. On the face of it, this is in similar vein, yet with the specs turned up to max. So high in fact that the Toshiba G910's main competitor will be the Nokia E90, and both now have very similar street prices. Looking like a super stylish electronic diary with leather effect plastic and gunmetal grey finish, the G910 spurns an E90 style cover phone in favour of a simple status LCD used for small icons, the time and the title of any media that's playing. A cool and efficient concept with only a flush D-pad and call and hang up buttons to mar the smooth front. But 99% of your G910 usage will be with the clamshell opened. As with last show's Asus M930, the screen doesn't use as much of the available width as it could, but at least here it's WVGA, i.e. 800 pixels by 480, and it's touch sensitive, complete with 8 configurable app launching hotspots either side. If you can remember as far back as the Scion Series 7, this is a similar system. The hotspots are actually just that. You can't press the icons themselves, but you soon get the knack. As you'll have guessed from the touch sensitive mention, the G910 runs full Windows Mobile, complete with stylus, and the Office Mobile suite. There's not only Pocket Internet Explorer, but also Opera Mobile. Is Toshiba trying to say that it doesn't trust the Microsoft browser? Actually, I wouldn't trust either. The former falls down on some of the modern sites and layouts, while the latter uses the WVGA screen to its fullest, meaning fonts that are only readable using an electron microscope. Tiny. Still, I guess there's the choice. The combination of stylus control and a full QWERTY keyboard works really well here. The stylus is beautifully sculpted and telescopic, while the keyboard is one of the clearest and best to the touch I've seen since the days of, well, since the Scion. Although the physical keys aren't that huge and could perhaps have been a bit bigger, they just feel right. The lack of a number key row is annoying, but easily forgiven. With the clamshell open, the hinge pops the device up at a pleasant angle, and the screen's nice and clear, indoors at least. Outdoors or in sunlight, the screen is unreadable, as usual for devices with resistive touchscreens. Around the hardware, there's a mini USB port on the bottom. Quite loose though, my cable kept falling out. There's a biometric fingerprint scanner, no less, seemingly used as a configurable way of launching applications. So index finger for calculator, a thumb for music and so on. A gimmick that I for one wouldn't need really, especially given the touchscreen shortcuts. There's a proprietary headset port, but the lead does at least end in a 3.5mm jack, so you can plug in standard headphones. Music playback quality over headphones is really very good, with control using the G910's D-pad if needed for adjusting tracks and adjusting volume. Volume using the built-in mono speaker on the back was very disappointing though. And finally on the hardware there's a micro SD card slot. Each of the ports here has a tethered cover, which is always very good to see. Oh, and one other hardware item. Around the back there's another innovation for a Windows mobile device. As expected, it's only a 2 megapixel camera, but there's both LED flash and autofocus. Admittedly, focusing is done by pressing a button manually on the top left of the keyboard, but I guess this actually just gives you the option of snapping quickly as is, or taking time and doing a focus shot. The camera positioning isn't great though. You have to hold the G910 precariously one-handed. Video capture is at 320 by 240 with surprisingly decent sound. Trying to play back a captured video clip hits the first real issue I have with the G910. Video playback in general was appallingly slow and jerky, on some of my test clips down to 1 frame a second. Still, maybe you want the G910 for business, in which case let's take my second issue. Opening a new Word mobile document takes a massive 15 seconds every single time. Why? I get the impression that Toshiba's not big on software quality control. In addition to the 2 issues above, I experienced several freezes where the G910 wouldn't come out of standby mode and I had to remove the battery to get it working again. Plus, doubled up characters from the keyboard and lengthy 20-second waits for Wi-Fi connections to be re-established after letting the screen and device time out. It all adds up to something of a frustrating experience. But when working, the G910 was fun to use and moderately impressive. There's full HSDPA data, the battery's on the capacious side at 1320 mAh, and there's a built-in GPS, which I was able to test successfully using Google Maps for mobile. All good stuff. Toshiba's reputation is suffering for the faults in their Portege devices, in my opinion. If only they'd test them before shipping them out of the factory, or at least get a firmware update service rolling. With the current situation, word is simply getting out that Toshiba make good hardware but can't implement a reliable smartphone operating system, and that's bad for them and for us users. 7 out of 10 for effort, Toshiba, but you've got some way to catch up with the likes of Nokia. The Portege G910. Oh yes, we haven't had a good Steve rant for a long time. I wanted to expand on something I said earlier. Whether you buy an iPhone for a small amount up front, as in the subsidised new iPhone 3G, and then pay for 18 or 24 months afterwards, or whether you buy, for example, a Nokia N95 or an HTC Titan, SIM-free, unlocked, £400 or £500, and then use a prepay SIM card, the total cost of ownership over the same period will be about the same for average usage. I've done all my sums. It really doesn't make much difference if you're just looking at the money. Where it does matter is in terms of freedom, absolute freedom. For me, I want the devices I own, I want to own them. I want to be able to sell them when I want. I want to be able to switch devices when I want, so that if something shinier, better comes along, I don't want to keep lusting after it and knowing I can't have it because I'm signed into a blessed contract. I don't want all the hassle of renegotiating upgrades and switchovers with my network. So it's all about freedom for me. Being locked into a contract doesn't show that freedom. I want to be able to buy and sell, switch networks with no limitations. What about you? Send me some comments by email.